moment London's Olympic dream came true. 5 years ago, Sebco's bid team stunned the world of sport by winning the right to host the 2012 Games.
It is there for the taking. A rich city. Food. Women. Gold. My men have come a long way for this. I say we take London now.
Well, the British bid originally seemed doomed, but it was reinvigorated with the idea of legacy at its heart. The ambitious promise to redevelop one of the poorest areas of the UK capital when building the facilities for the Games. That area is London's East End, which is getting ready for one of the biggest changes in its long and colourful history.
Literally, a city is appearing before our eyes in rapid time. I mean, this is a scale of change that is generational. I mean, this is something that happens, once in 100 years in the history of cities.
The Olympic Games, for me personally, I felt was given as to regenerate the whole of Newham, East London. That's exactly what I still feel it's going to do. People who come in to London or come to the East End, I think when they come, they're going to see a star city.
You spoke about the buzz. Everybody's getting ready for it. Whether you are looking to volunteer there or to actually compete there, everybody's getting ready for the Games.
And the East End already is getting ready. Welcome to the biggest building site in Europe, the Olympic Park. The area is immense, at 246 hectares. It's bigger than Monaco. More than 6,000 people work here every day. When complete, it will be home to such facilities as the Olympic Stadium, Velo Park and Aquatic Centre. But the 2012 Games are about much more than sport. The Athletes' Village will be converted into new housing. Organisers hope the International Broadcast Centre will be transformed into an international media hub. 250 acres of parkland, new transport and housing are also slated. A public body, the Olympic Delivery Authority, or ODA, is managing construction with a giant budget of £9 billion, or around €10.5 billion. But all of this has left some fearing the after effects of the Games. Most Olympic events will take place in the East End, in the heart of London, one of the poorest regions of all of Western Europe. For more than 150 years, the East End was home to the UK's largest docks. It lay at the hub of a vast global empire. At its peak, more than 100,000 people worked at the port. It became a centre for immigration as well as trade. During the Second World War, the docks became central to Britain's war effort and a target for repeated bombing campaigns. More than 40,000 people were estimated to have lost their lives in the Blitz. Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced and left the area forever. The East End was decimated. The area built up an us-against-them spirit. The docks somehow survived, but they gradually fell into decay. A chapter in the history of London ended when they closed in 1968. The UK's financial services boom transformed another part of London, but working-class East End was underfunded and forgotten.
But we also use the Games to transform the chances of the children of the East End.
So the Games promised to change all that, but the post-Games use of infrastructure remains controversial. They've already been high-profile victims. Tom Russell led regeneration after the O2 Manchester Commonwealth Games. He was brought in to deliver a London legacy, but left because of disagreements over policy. Last year, central government and London's Mayor Office set up a public body to oversee development and attract investors and operators. The Olympic Park Legacy Company was born. Its chief executive, Andrew Altman, says the Games will be an historic milestone in the history of East London.
For us, regeneration hardly ends with the Games. We're being given a huge kickstart. I mean, London has done an enormous acceleration that would have taken, if it would have happened, would have taken decades, has sort of put that on fast forward. But, you have to stick with it. Stick with all the things that we've talked about, continuing to make sure it's a diverse community, building the diversity of housing types, continuing to program the park, investing in the facilities. It takes time to nurture that, as cities grow over time.
The ODA has £9 billion to spend, and other investment is coming into the area. But some fear that local people could be shut out of all the benefits. The area of Newham will be most impacted by the Games. This London borough is home to 300,000 people. It's one of the most deprived areas in Britain and all of Western Europe. Unemployment twice the national average. Life expectancy is 5 years lower than in richer parts of London. Newham Mayor Robin Wales is a member of the left-of-centre Labour Party. He wants as many people as possible to benefit from the billions of pounds of investment that will flood into the area. He has a clear message to Olympic administrators.
I don't want my people with their nose pressed against the glass seeing the Olympics when actually they should be in watching the Olympics and experiencing the Olympics. The games would be great. Well, the games would be fantastic. Bit of luck, we'll win a load of medals. It'd be great fun. Everybody will have a really good time. What's left afterwards? £9 billion is a lot of money to have a good time for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, including the Paralympics. So what will then be left afterwards is the key question.
Conservative London Assembly member Andrew Boff is from the other end of the political spectrum, but shares many of Wales' fears.
The area where the Olympics is one of the most deprived parts of the UK, was to provide something for the local people there, to genuinely regenerate the area. The solution they seem to have been come up with is one that involves just importing lots of people with money to the area, but not providing anything for the people who actually live there. If we end up with an Olympics, for example, that doesn't solve the problems of overcrowding in East London, doesn't solve the problems of deprivation and the joblessness, then this really would have been a waste of £9 billion of taxpayers' money.
The OPLC has the support of all three main political parties. Altman insists the park will be a legacy for all Londoners.
The core of this is, as I said, regeneration, which is also significant benefits for the local community and the people who live here, so that the Olympic Park is integrated as part of, the wider neighborhoods here, as well as a part, obviously, of the growth of London. Let's just take one specific example, the Olympic Village. The Olympic Village, after the Games, will have 2,800 units of housing. About half of those units, 1,400 units, are going to be affordable at different levels, which shows you already the commitment to diversity and opportunities for affordable housing to ensure that these are, in fact, diverse communities that are within the park and opportunities for people both locally and within London to live on this park, so it's not an exclusive community. We're not creating a gated community here. This is going to be an open, inclusive community. It's going to be a part of London.
The OPLC will be under intense scrutiny. It needs to attract big investment and operators to the park without alienating local people. The ODA has already been criticised for not employing enough local people on the construction site. Fewer than 300 of the 6,000 construction workers come from the 5 Olympic boroughs. Dee Ducey comes from the Centre Liberal Democrat Party. She's chair of the London Assembly's Economic, Culture, Sport and Tourism Committee. She backs the new OPLC but fears the whole legacy idea could be left underfunded because of public reaction against overspending on the Olympic Games.
Nobody wants to use the word money, because the original budget, which was a complete joke, of £2 billion, I mean, how on earth anyone ever thought that was a proper budget when every other Games cost a minimum of £12 billion, but the original budget was just such a joke, and it caused so much problems with the press when the budget suddenly went from £2 billion to £9 billion, that I think there is within government a real fear of using the word money, because if you use the word money and the Olympics together, suddenly you're going to have the banner headlines, the budget has been increased, they have gone over the budget, etc. And I think that is part of the problem.
And when it comes to problems, there's an Olympic-sized one brewing at the stadium. The £550 million, 80,000-seat arena was designed to be reduced to 20,000 for athletics. Calls have been growing to recoup some of the investment by using it as a home of a football club. But last month, the British government insisted again that the stadium must stay primarily an athletics venue. Recent Olympic stadia in Sydney, Athens and Beijing are barely used today. Many fear London's showpiece will go the same way.
Well, it's absolutely essential to get a regular tenant, an anchor tenant for the stadium, and to organise that as soon as possible. But there is a concern that Tessa Giles said recently that she didn't want a football club there, which, in my view, is absolutely extraordinary statement to make, because the keenest athletics fan will say and will readily agree that you cannot fill a stadium of that size. It is just not financially viable.
The most likely tenant is West Ham United, currently based at Upton Park, 3 kilometres east of the Olympic Stadium. They want to move to the new stadium but don't want an athletics track there. West Ham and Olympic Park are both in Newham. The borough's mayor fears the stadium will be left empty if a Premier League club does not move in.
Very clear. I want that stadium used. I want it full. I want to keep it at a decent size. The only answer to that is a Premier League football team, which is The obvious one is West Ham. Manchester have put Manchester City into their stadium from the Commonwealth Games, and look how successful that has been. My view is very strongly that we should get West Ham in there, and we should take the money that we can make from that deal and then do something in athletics elsewhere in the capital.
Local resident Boff also wants a football club at the Olympic Stadium. He fears an empty stadium could overshadow the whole concept of legacy, and that a more controversial solution must be considered.
One of the options for the Olympic Stadium should be its demolition. And I know that's going to seem bizarre when you consider we've paid £500 million we're going to have paid £500 million for that stadium when it's finished. But if we're just faced with a white elephant that's just sucking in funding that is meant for other forms of sport, just to keep it open and empty, then I think that's something that we should consider.
So, in football-crazy Britain, the idea of a Premier League club in the Olympic Stadium overshadows the future. But when London won its bid, Sebco promised to boost all sports. One pledge was to get 2 million people more involved in sport around the country. To be short, Olympic sports will get a huge infrastructure boost post-2012. Tessa Sanderson competed in 6 Olympic Games. She brought home javelin gold at the '84 Olympics. So could facilities have been better for her generation of British athletes?
Absolutely. When I was competing in those years back, although I finished in 1997, but I started my athletics career in 1969, seriously, and you know, there was hardly anything. I mean, one of the times when I was doing, say, pentathlon as well, which is high jump, long jump, hurdles and all those sort of things, outside of javelin throwing, I remember going to one of the stadiums and had to, you know, dig in the dirt to put my heels, my feet in, to sort of use that as a block. Yeah. But in the days when I was competing, there was, you know, you were hoping that you'd get the floodlights on to access that. Well, at least, you know, we are hoping that this is what's going to happen, you know, via the OPLC, via LOCOG, via everybody, but just make sure that the community is there, the accessibility will be there for them to come in, see the facilities, use the facilities.
Jeanette Quakey was Europe's best female sprinter at the last Olympics. She lives just a few kilometres from the Olympic Park. So what does the woman who came 6th in the 100 metres Beijing final think of the Olympic effect?
I think at an elite level, you'll be looking at definitely moving people down from, you know, all over the country. Wherever there has been, like, a massive influx of, you know, kids wanting to do things, you'll pick up that talent. So once that talent comes down into London, you know, and you see the stadium and the facilities, it'll be one of the best centres in the world. So for me, I think at an elite level, you know, there's no limit on where that can be pushed to.
No limit to the Games and the Olympic Park then. With the Vancouver Winter Games over, London will be in the spotlight now as never before. Few doubt that the 2012 Games themselves will be a success. One thing's for sure, after the Olympics, London will wave goodbye to an old part of its city.